way of being able to bring a community together, bring people together and knowledge together to be able to share. And that's the main thing that I really want to do with Fight Creative.
The Fight Creative Podcast, hosted by Seb Muirhead and Chan Griffin.
Welcome to the Fight Creative Podcast. I'm here with Jahne, and very big pleasure to have you on board here and giving us your time to be able to have a good chat.
It's a great pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and like how you got into stunts?
My name's Jahne. I guess I originally started off as a martial artist, so I was doing Wing Chun Kung Fu for about 10 years or something.
Wow.
And that was probably when I was about 21 till I was in probably 30 or whatever.
Wow.
And towards the end of that I got into circus. I started training with Circus Oz to learn circus skills, which was purely just something I'd always wanted to do. It was just going to be a hobby, and there was an opportunity to do adult classes, so I went, oh, that sounds great. And a little bit into that time, Chris Anderson, one of the legendary Australian stunt coordinators, who ran an agency back then, was holding auditions. So someone told me about the auditions and I went, oh my God, I've just always wanted to be somehow on film and television. And I always thought, oh, maybe I'd be a cameraman, maybe I'd do something else, not realising, I've just been a physical guy all my life.
Yeah.
So I went along to the audition, there was hundreds of people there, and we all just went through like a basic stunt training session. There were some other stunt coordinators there, and over about 2 days we just did basic mini tramp stuff. We did some basic fight scenes and whatever, and they selected 15 people out of hundreds.
Wow.
And I was lucky enough to be one of those selected. So then I just started training with Chris Anderson and his guys at New Generation Stunts back then.
Wow. What sort of era was that, like roughly time?
That was about early 90s, probably 91, 92.
Wow.
Yeah. So
amazing.
and I was the old guy, back then I was like 30.
Yeah.
And from what I heard when I went to the audition, they were looking for young guys, 17 and up sort of thing. And I thought, I've got no hope in getting into this. And somehow, I don't know how, I got in there, at 30. And even then, I was learning circus skills as a bloody 30-year-old acrobat, But it just shows you, if you feel like you've got something, don't let, and even now, don't let age or preconceived ideas stop you, or what you've heard from other people or whatever. If you think you can give that a shot, whatever it is, I definitely think, give it a go and let the world decide, let karma decide whatever it is, because here I was, I was a tradie back then. I was a high voltage electrician working for the government, and all of a sudden I was starting to be a circus performer and training with a bunch of legendary stunt guys, It
Must have been such an exciting transition for you.
Yeah. It was the most exciting time of my life, I think, that stunts and circus sort of changed my life, because until then I was doing a normal job, 5 days a week, go in, come home, do all of that. And then all of a sudden I was working with creative people who all loved what they were doing.
Yeah.
And I discovered, this is what I love to be doing, and that it was life-changing.
Yeah, a world changer, I guess.
Yeah, it really was.
And Chris Anderson's touched everyone really in Australia, in the sense of he was the first person who gave me a shot as well, and was as well. It's just amazing.
So many people.
Yeah, what a legend.
Yeah.
So as soon as you started training at his sort of training facilities, like his centre and stuff, what happened then? You just started working or started improving? And
I certainly started, I started improving in the stunt world, but I certainly didn't start working, And even that, it's one of the things I like to tell young people coming up now and starting to do stunts. It's like a 5-year plan before you will start working with any sort of consistency.
Yeah.
And, you know, that can change here and there. You know, sometimes there are big jobs that come through and, you know, young stunties get opportunities, you know, but just at the same time, those jobs vanish and then you're left there without any work and you start to, you know, criticise yourself and you start to wonder what you did wrong and all of that.
Yeah.
And so I always say, yeah, to me, it's like a 5-year plan before you can really see if you're getting involved in the industry or not, you know.
Yeah. For
So
sure.
so I started. Back then we were training on Saturdays and sometimes Wednesday nights. It was only 2 times a week. So I go into training there and do all the mini tramp stuff and fight scenes and whatever. And we'd have specialist days where you did some wire work and some vehicle stuff, you know.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, we learned abseiling and whatever else from experts who would come in, and just bit by bit we started getting our skills up and just learning the craft really.
Yeah.
And back, you know, we had the grading system back then, the same, you know, relatively the same as it is now, where you knew to become a SAP, you know, these were the fundamentals the levels you had to get to.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, back then we were all trying to progress to get our first grading, our first SAP grading.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, with the hope then that would start introducing us to some background work and whatever.
Yeah, definitely.
You know? So,
Wow.
yeah.
So it was still a long journey for you, like through the training and then getting your grading and then getting your first job. Like It took a bit of time.
Yeah. So I remember I think it took me, you know, it was over, you know, maybe a year and a half before I got my SAP grading, something like that, you know. And then I remember my first job was being a dead body after a car crash, you know, slumped over a steering wheel with some blood all over me in the middle of the night, freezing.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't a stunt or anything, it was just a body in a car. You know, and there are a number of those type of jobs, you know, body floating in a fountain, you know, and stuff like that. You know, it wasn't the glorious stunt life by any means straight away. You know, and that took, to get any sort of regular work took years, you know. Yeah.
I guess a lot of patience too, right? Like
and consistency. Just going to training every week, you know, taking up any specialist courses that the guys are offering, you know, and being involved in whatever was going on, you know, helping out, you know, fix a training studio, you know, lugging mats, doing whatever you could just to be around
and be involved.
Yeah. You know. Yeah.
Is there any sort of thing that you'd tell your younger self who was just starting out in stunts? Like any advice that you give yourself now, now that you've been through it all? Like
that would be it. About do anything you can to be involved with the people and with the industry, and not even as far as directly doing stunt training and everything else, you know, that's of course that's the number one thing to be doing, but just be involved around the stunt scene, you know, and do whatever you can that contributes to that lifestyle, especially early on, and also there's a lot of criticism sometimes that comes through your performance and your skill level and whatever. And I found you can knock yourself down with sometimes the criticism that comes from all sorts of people, you know. There is, you know, stunt coordinators. Hey, I'm a stunt coordinator. Sometimes you get criticised and it really, you take it to heart. But it could be just one piece of criticism. So I always say don't listen to those single bits of criticism. Get a general feeling about if people are telling you all the time that you should improve in one thing, then take that on board, you know. You start to get a series of, what would you say, you know, just
messages from other places, right?
Like, and if
a few people saying
if you keep getting those messages from different places, then take that on board, you know. Hey, that's the thing, you know, do something about it. But I found a lot of times just one little piece of criticism can really affect you and knock you down. And sometimes, and later on, knowing what I know nowadays, you know, sometimes that stuff is just by the wayside, you know. Someone's having a bad day and you can be knocked down and sent down the wrong path by that stuff, you know. So
sure.
try and realise what's true and what isn't, I guess.
Yeah. Is there anything that you do yourself to try and, navigate through that? Like, it almost feels like you're saying something about how you have to try and keep true to yourself, right? Like, and try not to let others' opinions of you affect you so much that it really hurts you deeply, right?
Yeah.
Like, you have to figure out a better way. Like, is there things that you do that help you keep that composure about yourself? Or any advice that you give other people to be able to not take those things so much to heart? Like, is there a way of protecting yourself, you know?
Yeah. Because when you're first starting out, you're really vulnerable.
Yeah,
because
and you want to do the best job you can possibly do and impress everyone, right?
Yeah, that's right. And that's why it can cut you so much when something comes along. Yeah. Which is why I think you try and smooth that stuff out over a period of time. You know, so you do realise what are the things I should be working on, what are things I need to change about myself. If you keep getting that feedback, then obviously you need to take that on board. But just the little one-off comments or whatever, you try and smooth that stuff out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny starting to become on the other end now with directing people with their fight choreography and stuff. Sometimes I'd say something off whim or, some kind of sarcastic comment or something, but then like I realize sometimes the newer people will take that to heart. And it's like, I've got to be really careful because there's power in words, there's power in the way that you say things and criticize people or even just give feedback to people. You've got to just be super careful about how you handle things all the time, being from the top down instead of the bottom up,
Yeah, and it's very important to know each person that you're saying something to.
Yeah.
Because once again, some people need to be told directly, critiqued or whatever it is. They're fine with that. That's how you get the message through. Whereas other people, like you're saying, an offhanded comment, maybe you'd be having a bad day or something, and you just flippantly say something to a certain person, that can be really devastating.
Yeah, for sure.
And and it's important, I feel, as you say, as someone who's leading others, to be aware of that stuff.
Yeah.
And to realise if it's happened too, and be able to do something about it before it festers into something much larger.
For sure.
And especially it's funny for all of us, I guess, but especially for new people like who are vulnerable, coming into an industry where it becomes your life. It has to become your life, this industry, to succeed in it, I think. I don't think there are any part-time stunt performers, that if you want to be a professional stunt performer, you need to take this on as a lifestyle.
There's a lot of training involved, a lot of sacrifice too, I guess,
Yeah.
Like, do you have any sort of advice on how, if people are wanting to get into the industry, like how they should set up their life, because they don't have as many commitments right now or whatever because they're still young.
Yeah.
Like, is there anything that they should be working on or doing to be able to structure a better way to success,
Yeah. I think, like as I said before, I guess be involved in the industry, which is be involved in relating to other stunties, to other, I like to say be involved with coordinators and anyone who's in the industry. Yeah. But I always worry about saying be involved, relating to coordinators and everything, because unless you have a personal relationship with a coordinator, that comes in time. Yeah. And so I feel like being around other stunt people, that sets you up later on to be noticed, to be whatever. And I think you need to set yourself up financially, I guess, and emotionally for the highs and the lows.
Yeah.
So, like, a lot of times you'll get on jobs and you'll be having the time of your life. You know, if you get on a movie and you're one of the utilities or whatever else, you might have 3-4 months of work, and you're flying high, and you're with a group of like-minded people, and we know this is the best job in the world.
Yeah.
So you're having the best time of your life, and then at the wrap party, it finishes, and you're looking for the next opportunity, and it may not come for months.
Yeah.
And that can be really devastating to you. I've found that emptiness of all of a sudden, all these people you've met and everything else, they're all gone.
Yeah.
And you're just sitting there going, what happened? And so, one, financially, you've got to store up your acorns to last out the time until you get your next job and whatever. And that could be a month, it could be months away.
Yeah.
But also emotionally, because you always question yourself then. You hear about other work going on and you're going, what did I do? Why haven't I got a phone call, and all of that? And it's, it's usually nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
So I think setting yourself up to ride out that kind of stuff will give you good longevity and set you up for the future, so you're not discouraged and you're not emotionally scarred by those downtimes.
Because it's just common. It's just a part of this life, right?
Yes.
It's the ups and downs of it. There's times where you're working a lot, and then there's times where you're not working at all, and you just go, what's going on? Like, why am I not getting any work? And is there anything that you kind of like to do to focus on to get your mind off of that, or like to be able to make sure that you're still, progressing forward as a person, as a human being and stuff? Or do you just go and try and let yourself go and go, well, this is what's happening in the world right now, let's go and do something fun with my life until the next job comes? I try and have a balance. So when there's no work or anything else, then I have other things that I love doing, and I can go to them. But once again, stunts is my life, and that's what stunt performers do. That's our lives. Stunts are our lives. So in the downtimes, you can take that as an opportunity to train up on those things that you feel you need to learn, or whatever else, and by shoring up your finances during the good times, you can start investing some money in your training to bring your level up when you're not working. Because a lot of times when you're working, you don't have time to train, you're just working, Yeah,
so use the downtimes to help your career. Personally, I used to go off, and I was vehicle wrangling for a long time with the vehicle wranglers, just delivering cars to set, nothing to do with stunts, but it meant that I was driving different cars every day. The pay was a lot less, but I took it as training. I get to drive different cars, feel what they like, do all of that. That was great. Plenty of stunties now, I did the same, go and do event rigging, go up and hang in the roof of Etihad Stadium or something like that. And once again, indirectly, you're learning the craft. You're making some money in the downtime, So, I would say, do that kind of thing.
So find a job that will complement your skills training and still at least earn you some bread and butter to be able to live off of, and use some of that money to be able to train in other things as well.
And I think on the other side of it too is we all have relationships with people, Some of us are married, some of us have girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever. We have our friends. So I think it's really important to invest time in that side of it too, your other relationships, your family and all of that. So, because when you're working, that's all pushed to the side. And I know myself, that can be devastating on your personal relationships. So when you have downtime, I think that's the time to reward the hardship for your relationships. Reward that with some time with them, and so with your partner or with your family or whatever, have quality time with them when you're not working, and balance it up. Because I think it's very easy in our business to be totally invested in the film life and neglect a whole bunch of other stuff, and that too often I've seen that come back to bite people later on.
Definitely.
And make your life miserable when you're trying to have the best job in the world, you know.
Yeah, there's so many broken families in this industry.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And it is a hard thing to balance, really difficult.
So hard.
You know. But,
yeah. I don't know the answers either, you know.
No,
yeah.
it's always still trying to work it out.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. Constantly. And on the other side of it too is, as we're saying, try and, hey, I don't know the answers to this either, but find other work that you can walk away from quickly to go take the stunt opportunities.
Yes.
And I find things like that, the rigging stuff, they're very, just spur of the moment. You go off, do a night, do a day, whatever, but you can say no to those and get straight back onto film work when it comes.
Yeah.
But otherwise...
But you're still utilising skills, right?
Exactly, and that's what we said before,
Yeah, so good.
Yeah.
So valuable. Do you have any sort of advice for, someone who first step on set and, some of the do's and don'ts of things that they should think about when they first come on?
There's so many things, yeah. I guess be led by, one the stunt coordinator, that's your point of contact on a set. But be led by the other stunties, watch what other people are doing. And when the timing's appropriate, ask people questions about what's happening. Don't be embarrassed that you don't know certain things. And you see people around you who seem to know all about it, who are still new and whatever, but they know all this stuff and you don't. But I still think ask questions and find out, and get a sense of what you should be doing.
Don't be afraid, to ask them, and don't be afraid to tell people that it's your first time on set.
That's
or
right, yeah.
whatever, right? Like there's no shame in it. Everyone's been there.
Exactly, that's right. Everyone's been there and everyone realises that. And you can't be expected to be a professional the first day in anything.
Yeah.
So, and it's the same on set for a new stunt person. So I think that's a really big one. And if you know you're about to go out on set, try and find out as much as you can about what's going to happen on that day. Learn the call sheet.
Learn the call sheet.
Yeah. There's if you know you're going out on set in a week's time or whatever, ask the stunt coordinator, ask the stunties, someone who you know, can you tell me what a call sheet's about?
Yeah.
And you find out so much information there, and so you've already got a really good heads up on what's going to happen on that day. So you're not just so fresh and walking on there going, oh my God, what's going on?
Yeah, definitely.
What else? Pick your times when to ask questions, like if the stunties are busy doing something, if the stunt coordinator's talking to the director, that's not the time.
To push the button, 3, 2, 1, don't ask him a question.
Exactly. So, pick your moments.
Yeah.
And part of that is, I think, just being present on set or when you get there, just taking in what's going on, trying to figure out, where's the location, where's the unit base, all that stuff, and figuring out, the vibe on, just the vibe and where you are and what's happening, and letting that sort of sink in as well.
Yeah,
so you've got, an understanding of where things are. I guess being in the stunt department, learn where the mats are, where the stunt equipment is. So later on, if you get asked, go get me some mats, you at least got a heads up, you know where they are,
For sure.
Watch what the other people are doing.
Yeah. Are there any sort of qualities that you look in people like that you go, oh, I'd definitely rehire that guy again? Like, what are some of the things that make you go, yeah, that person, that stunt person is really good. Like, I'd really like to get them on the next job as well. Are there any sort of things that stand out for you?
Yeah, I think do what's asked of you. If you're there as a stunt assistant, be a good stunt assistant. You know, so once again, know where things are. You know,
Know your role, I guess.
yeah, know your role. Yeah, and when you're a performer, if you've been brought out to, whatever, drive a car through the back of shot, do that. Drive the car through the back of shot. Do what's asked. Stick to the timing that's asked of you. Reset the car safely. You don't need to show us that you can do a donut at the end of the car park. Yeah, you don't have to show off to show what you can do on a day where you just need to drive a car past. Because, and I think that's a really broad thing that's really important. If you're there as an assistant, clean a mat, bring a mat, have it standing by, know what the next scene is. If you're there as a rigger, you come with your rigging kit. Someone says, put a pulley over there, you hook a pulley up over there. You don't have to go and rig up a whole system or whatever, just put the pulley up. Because I always remember who did exactly what they were supposed to do. And it's not about showing me how great you are as whatever it is. It's like, I have you there to do a job, and if you can do that job, that makes me really happy, because then I say, oh, if I get you on for something else, I know you'll take care of that. And following on with that is, don't embellish your skills. If I have someone on as, to do a little fight scene, and I say, oh, can you do this fight? Can you throw some punches for me? Can you do a high kick? Yeah, I can do a high kick. And then that person comes on board, and next thing the kick's all over the shop, or they can't throw a proper punch. I'm going, but you told me you could do this. So I think, don't lie about your skills. Because if I say, oh, look, can you do this high kick? Say you can't, and I go, all right, maybe I can use you to do the punch. Can you do the punch? Yeah, I can do that. Beautiful, I'll get you out to do that. Because when you have people out, you need to know that they've got your back, as a stunt coordinator. You need to know that they can do
what you need them to
do.
And if you can't do what you need them to do, sometimes it's okay for the co-ord or the fight choreographer to be able to do things, re-choreograph it. But if you don't know, then they just like do a weird kick on set, in front of camera. It's like, it makes everyone look bad.
Everyone look bad, that's right,
So, and potential injury too,
Yeah, that's the other side of it. Sometimes you're throwing that kick at an actor. So I think it's just be realistic about your skill set. And because and that's another thing for me is honesty. Just be honest about stuff, once again about your skills, but also, can you go talk to the first AD or one of the ADs about such and such, and just go, yeah, and you've got no idea who that is. It makes the whole department look bad when someone's wandering around on set who doesn't know what they're doing. When you just go, oh look, I don't know who that is. And I can point that out. We're fine with that.
For sure.
And then we know we can trust that person. If they don't know something, they'll let you know.
For sure.
And that increases exponentially when you start getting into the dangerous stunts, car crashes, fire, whatever. You really want your team to let you know what they don't know or what they do know, what if they see a problem, whatever. So I think honesty is a really big one for me.
It's like a good communication in the small stuff sets you up for some of the bigger stuff later, I guess. That's right, because whether it's big or small, the honesty comes in the same way. Sure.
And because eventually we're looking after our lives, each other's lives. And so that's where the band of brothers stuff comes, and you can only do that through trust and honesty between each other.
Definitely. What sort of advice would you give to people who are looking to start to get into the assistant co-ords or the co-ord sort of realm of things, like who've been established for a bit longer, maybe they're getting a bit older, or they're looking to diversify within their career? Have you got any sort of advice for them?
I think in the bigger picture, it becomes what can you do for others, and what can you do for the production, and how can you support either the stunt coordinator or, how can you support others? As you're coming up. It's not about, to me, it's not about what you can do. It's not about showing the next person who you're striving to come up to. It's not about showing your stunt coordinator how good you are at something, or showing the director what great ideas you've got. I think it's more about supporting this whole, production to make it the best it can be, and finding out what that is. Like, every different stunt coordinator works a different way, has different needs. Some coords are great in their fighting. Some coords are great in vehicles. Some coords are great in whatever, rigging. And others, are specialists in one area and not in the other. So when you're coming up, and if you know that your coord has not a degree in rigging, or whatever, that's where you can offer support in that to fill the gaps, Yeah. And it's not even about showing how great a rigger you are or whatever. It's filling the gap, so the whole thing, so it's all supported, So
building a good team around you, right, that can get the job done.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things in stepping up like that, is it becomes less about showing your skill and all the rest of it, and showing how good you are at different things. It's more about the benefit of the whole production.
Yeah. It is one of those things, hey, that a lot of people can get so stuck in, like, trying to make themselves look good rather than making the whole production look good, right? And it is about stepping back sometimes and making sure that you're not only yourself, but your whole team is conducting itself in a way that is complementing all the other departments as well, and contributing what they need to contribute to the film to make it better.
Yeah, and I think, because on your way up as a stunty and whatever, you're a lot about showing other people what you can do.
Yeah.
So you get hired, so you get used, whatever. But I think the higher you get up, it becomes a bit broader than that, exactly, about what can you do to enhance this whole thing.
Yeah, for sure.
And finding out where that is.
That is so interesting, hey, how it comes from almost like a self thing, like where you're trying to prove yourself and showcase all of what you are as a person with all these skills, but then eventually it comes into, it's not about you anymore. It's actually about how can you best service everyone, service the production.
Yeah, and it starts with how can you best service the stunt department, and then it becomes even greater.
Broader.
Yeah, broader.
Yeah,
so it's almost like you get absorbed into this whole group of great people or whatever, to make, how can you make the whole production better, the product, I guess the film or whatever it is.
Yeah, for sure. Oh.
Yeah.
Do you have any like favourite books that you like to gift people? Like, do you have any favourite books? It doesn't have to be stunt related, just anything that you like,
I guess,
reading at the moment.
Yeah, look, one book that really made a difference to me as I was coming up as a stunty, it's called The 5 C's of Cinematography.
Oh, right.
And it explains so much about the craft of camera, and I could relate that to stunts, to what we do. And it talks all about composition and lighting and camera angles and all of that, lenses and whatever. And it's quite an old book, but the principles in it I found were golden for what we do.
That's awesome.
And it was stunt coordinator called Brett Anderson, who used to be a DOP. He recommended that to me.
Yeah, right.
And I must say, it taught me a lot about the craft of filmmaking.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Have you noticed a big difference between how films were made and stunts were done back when you first started to what it is now? Like,
Yeah, hey, I think stunts are a lot safer now.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just for, I guess for the reasons of CGI, you know, wire work and all of that sort of thing. You know, in a lot of ways, I think, stunts have been made safer. There's a lot more concern about the safety of stunt people nowadays. When I think early on, it was more acceptable that stuntmen take bigger risks. You know, I feel like stuntmen got hurt a lot more back in the day because they were doing big stuff without the assistance of wire work, without the assistance of CGI. You know, now with CGI we can leave the mats in place.
Yeah.
You know, we can instead of doing high falls off things, we can, you know, put people on a wire. Lots of tricky things where you don't need to do the car knockdown anymore. You can do it in a composite shot.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, things like that have meant, you know, stuntmen
Changed
are
it.
a lot safer.
Yeah.
But in the same way, I feel like sometimes stunties aren't accepting that some days you're going to do some big wrecks and you just need to tough it out and be uncomfortable
Yeah.
and all of that. And I think that becomes the serious side of doing stunts, is that yes, we are the people who have to come in and hit those rocks, hit the concrete floor.
Yes.
Sometimes you just have to do that stuff and be ready for that, you know.
For sure.
Or go in a river and float down a freezing river.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you're still called upon to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
And as stuntmen and women, we have to go, great,
Yep.
let's do this.
Yeah.
You
That's
know.
your job, right?
It's our job, because in the
Yeah.
end, that is our job. And as much as I know as a coordinator, I'm trying to remove that stuff as much as possible. So we all go home and we all feel great at the end of the day. But there are some stunts that are just gnarly, and you need to look for some stunt performers who just can do that stuff. And I think I think that has lessened over the years,
Yeah.
of people who can take those hard knocks when they have to.
Yeah, for sure.
You know,
yeah. Yeah, it has
yeah.
changed, I think,
Yeah.
a lot. It's funny, I always think of it like for all the days where I'm just lying in the background as a glorified extra, all that money that I'm getting for that is contributing towards this one day where I have to do a really hard stunt.
Yes.
And that's where the
yes.
money is, you know,
Yes.
like that's where all those days are paying for this one. You
Yeah.
know?
That's right. You have to lap up those days when
Lap up
you're
those
lying in the
days.
corner,
Yeah.
because the other day will come.
Yeah,
You know.
for
And
sure.
strangely enough, I've been talking to some you know, stunt performers recently who have had a few years under their belt now, and they always listen to our stories
Yeah.
about the hardships that we've had, and you can tell who's going to be a great stunty when they're going, I can't wait for my story to come.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, something will happen to them where they are smashed into something or down the raging rapids or whatever, and have the worst day of their lives, but they come out the other side and go, finally I've got my story of misery and hardship and pain and suffering. And it's like a badge of honor.
Yeah.
And it's like you get welcomed into this fold. And you know, and you know, they're the stunties, you know, who you go, yeah, you've got it, you know,
Yeah.
you've got that thing,
sure.
that thing it takes.
Yeah.
So you can, and having had those days means you can sit in the corner and take those beautiful days where you're not too uncomfortable and you're just as a background sort of like dead body lying there, and accept the money.
Yeah.
And go, this is paying for that other
that
time.
other time.
When, yeah, exactly.
Is there anything that you sort of like to do to prepare yourself mentally and physically for a really hard stunt just before you're about to do it, or?
I think the biggest thing that's helped me was to simplify it. Because I remember in my early days when you had to, like, say, run across there, dodge that, the car will come, you'll get hit by the car, whatever. I used to sit there and go, oh my God, okay, so I've got to take a few seconds. That's going to take me 3 seconds to get here. I've got to hit that mark there. Then I've got to turn my left leg and go there and then look this way and try not to look that way. And your head becomes full of stuff. And I think with experience, I've gone, I just need to go over there, make sure I'm in the right spot at the right time to get hit by the car. And I trust that my training, my timing, and my body will just do what it has to do to get me to that car, to be hit by that car. And I think that's something before a big stunt, is to just know that your training is going to look after you, and know that your body awareness is going to look after you. An example is when people are doing ratchet rams. At the start of the ram, they're sitting there and you can see them really tense and everything. You fire the ram and it goes off, and they're just in a ball at that position. They're just in that position and they're flying, and then they hit the ground and they're stiff as a board, and they take a wreck and they get, it's painful and all that. Where with experience on that ram, at the start, when it's gonna hit you. So you tighten up for that, for the launch. Through the air, you should just be traveling through the air, loose as anything, controlling where you're going, knowing, my landing's coming. I'll position myself for my landing in the air and be just relaxed about it. Your body will know what to do when it lands. You're going to hit the position when you land, and brace yourself and take the shock. But during that, you're going to trust that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it, is to not to complicate it too much, Yeah. And
Awesome.
I think also, if you've got a big stunt coming, train up to it, find out about, ask other people about, what's the car knockdown like, or if you haven't done them, or whatever. I found, I guess, know your demons, know what your fears are about it. If you're really worried about a stunt coming up, I try and examine, because I'm always worried about a stunt coming up, but there's that, and then there's a real fear about it and a real concern that can, distract you from what you should be doing. So I try and reach inside myself and go, what is it that's really disturbing me about doing whatever this stunt is?
Yeah.
And try and almost expose that, and then you can do something about it.
Wow.
If it's, if you're worried about a car knockdown because, someone's broken their leg, I'd be going, I'm scared about breaking my leg. All right, what can I do about that, And I can talk to people who've done knockdowns, and talk to the guy who broke his leg, what happened? And try and expose that stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
And then knowledge is power.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
And that strips away a lot of the concern.
Yeah.
And once again, then that simplifies just doing what you have to do without all the other extraneous stuff getting in your head.
Yeah.
So I think that's...
It's almost like you're doing your own personal work first to really come to why you have those fears, and then just instead of sitting on it just yourself, getting other people to help you in the community of people who have been through it and done it before and come out the other side and learning from that too, to make it less of this massive, crazy
burden.
Yeah,
that's right. I think involving others, the right people, the people you trust, the people you respect, involving others to give you advice or to and just to help you get rid of some of that stuff, whatever that is.
So hard, hey, because it's putting yourself in such a vulnerable place, but it's so rewarding too.
Yeah, that's right. And that's something about back in the old days, the persona of the stunt man was tough, armour, and that's kind of almost it goes against, it goes against us,
Yeah, it does.
So exposing that I think it's that's something that's really better nowadays, is you can expose that vulnerability to some of your colleagues, and they're ready to help you. You know, and that's what I find with stunties, because we go through life-threatening experience and great misery sometimes. I think that band of brothers stuff opens us all up to sharing our fears as well as our victories. You know, and learning from each other. It's really important.
For sure. For
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Now, I think we'll wrap this up in a second, Graham.
Yeah,
Thank
no
you so
worries.
much
Yeah.
for everything that you've shared with us today.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that you would like to mention, or any thoughts or comments or things that you have on your mind?
I think I've exhausted them all. You know, I think I think the 5-year plan. You know, for new people. I think don't be put off too early. You know, it takes
takes time.
years.
Yeah. Be patient, but be persistent, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And I think in the end, doing stunts, like doing lots of other skills, you have to love it. It has to be in you. And I think for those who love this stuff, who'd be doing it anyway, you know, that's the right personalities, you know, to be a stunt person.
Yeah. Find the thing that you love in it and go with that. Right?
Go with that, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I always think I think a funny anecdote is for drivers. I always ask people, "Oh, when did you start, you know, driving and whatever?" You know, and I find people who have said, "Oh, well, I got my license, you know, and then I got my first car and I started driving." It always rings a bell for me about going, well, yeah, we'll see what sort of a driver you are, you know. But when I ask the best drivers, they say, oh, probably when I was about, I don't know, I was sitting on my dad's knee when I was about 5, steering the car, you know, and then, you know, when I was about 12, I was out in the paddock with a paddock bomb somewhere, and, you know, all of that, you know, it's been in their blood since they were 5 years old.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same with, you know, with fighters, with riggers, with, you know, we were all doing this stuff when we were kids, and a lot of the time we'd be doing this stuff anyway. You know, if this wasn't our job, we'd still be out doing it. And, you know, so I think find those things that you love doing when you're a kid, and if that can get translated into the stunt world, you know, that will keep you going through all the hard times and all the good times, you know.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
you'll want to improve, you know. And I think that's, you know, another thing for when you're on set. This is a great one. Always when you're talking to people, look at the set. Don't turn your back on what's going on at the set.
Yeah.
Because I find that out, you know, for myself, for new people and all of that. Yeah. Watch what's happening on set while you're chatting. You know, I think it's okay to be chatting somewhere else, but yeah, always look that way, because then you'll see what's happening. You'll know what's going on, you know. Yeah.
So easy to miss the things that are really important.
That's right. When you're at work, when you're there, you know.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, they're my gems.
Awesome.
And I think
Thank
too.
you.
Oh, and one other thing, I guess.
Go.
What I recognise as a stunt coordinator, when I'm looking for new people to come and assist me or do whatever they do, when I turn up at training sessions, I always look for people who are interested. So when it's not their turn on the wire, getting flung through the air or jumping on the rope, I look for people who are still watching what others are doing, you know. And there's always a bunch of people who are off in the corner having a chat, while everyone else is getting rigged up, while we're changing pulleys, while we're doing all that stuff. And I always think it's the people who are watching, even when it's not their turn, they're the ones who are interested, they're the ones who are going to go a long way and learn stuff much quicker than others who, when it's not their turn, are off chatting with their mates.
Yeah.
You know? So I think when you're at a training session or whatever, it's a good thing for people who are training to be interested in what's going on. Because for me, that's a giveaway as to who I want to have and you know who's first off the list and who's second, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
People who are open to learning as much as they can and attentive to that as well.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can really tell some people are just hungry for it, hungry for learning, and willing to just learn off of everyone they can instead of just go, oh yeah, well yeah, I already know this. I'll go and chat with this guy, and then once it's my turn, I'll get in and I'll be able to figure it out myself. You know.
That's right,
But,
100%. Because it's the people who are when something's given to them, they take that on board and then they walk off. But so much happens when it's not just being presented to you, when it's happening somewhere else. You can pick up so much, and that'll go for a training session. That goes on set.
On set a lot.
One of the other things on watch what's going on set. You pick up so much.
Yeah, don't just watch the stunts, watch the lighting, watch the way that they do the cameras, everything.
Yep.
Like, there's so much to learn, and it all helps you as a stunt performer.
That's right. It all benefits what we do. Because I always like to say, stunt people, to me, are one of the only departments who have to deal with every department almost on set. You know, we deal with camera, we deal with makeup, costume, locations, everybody. You know, we're talking to the ADs. We've got something to do with everyone because what we do affects everybody.
Yeah.
So it's really important, I think, on set when you're not doing much. That's a golden time to be learning all about our craft, and that will really benefit later on, especially when you come to be an assistant co-ord or a stunt coordinator, or you know, knowing what everyone does and how we affect them.
Yeah.
You know, costume, you're going to have to cut a hole in it to put a wire out the side, you know, or they're going to fall in the mud, you know.
Yeah. They need to know that they need to have a backup costume, you know.
Exactly. So many times, of course, as you would be doing all the time, makeup wants to know where the scars are because they're going to shoot the aftermath of the fight scene before we actually do the fight. So they're going to want to know, where do I put the scar? You know, and so many times they don't come to us, so it's up to us to know they're going to want to know that and go to them.
For sure.
And then we look good once again, you know, the stunt department. Liam Neeson's stunt double, Mark Vanslow, once said, I want stunts to be the department of solutions. I want everyone to come to stunts to get their solutions. And I thought that is a wonderful way of thinking, you know, that because
it'd be wonderful to be like that too for everyone.
Yeah.
To be the department that can give all those solutions.
Yep. And I'll never forget a wonderful compliment that happened once when we came onto set was some of the makeup people that we've known for a long time. They went, "Oh, Stunt's here today." We go, "Yeah, we're going to be doing some stuff." They said, "I love it when stunts come on set because I know everything's going to be all right. Everything's going to be safe." And I went, that's just a wonderful thing to hear from another department. And that's what we want to exude to everyone on set.
That's the goalpost, really.
That's the goalpost, yeah.
Amazing.
Okay, I'm going to stop talking now.